She's responsible for community development, marketing, public space maintenance, security, services, real estate, small business development, and the arts program within the University of Detroit's Cultural Center, now known as Midtown. Projects undertaken under her organization have included public-private developments such as streetscapes, park development, greenway planning, and construction. The organization also produces a number of signature art events, including ArtX Detroit and Knoll Night. If you don't know Midtown Detroit, it's been booming. This is where the Whole Foods and a number of significant new developments have occurred recently, and I know Sue is known affectionately as the mayor of Midtown.
Thanks.
Sue?
Thank you. Pleased to get a chance to come and talk to you all today. So we're going to do a real whirlwind kind of tour through the redevelopment efforts that are underway in this neighborhood. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's the neighborhood north of downtown, right around the area between the Detroit Symphony Orchestra Hall, up through the Cultural Center, Wayne State University, two medical centers, Henry Ford and the Detroit Medical Center. So it's a mixed-use neighborhood with lots of different things going on. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the work we do and sort of the momentum that's underway in the district. So first thing to know about the district is there's a lot of people that come to this neighborhood for a lot of reasons. There's about 50,000 daytime employees here. There's about 30,000 students between Wayne State University and the College for Creative Studies, who now has two campuses. Actually, Wayne has two campuses too. They have a medical campus and a core main campus. There are about 13,000 volunteers that come on a regular basis because of all the nonprofit organizations that are anchored here. And then we have a number of different neighborhoods. We represent New Center, Midtown, Woodbridge. There's about 25,000 residents in those neighborhoods. It's been a lot of investment happening here in the last 10 years. So about $3 billion has been spent. There's a lot of money that's been spent by the medical systems, who are all putting in hundreds of millions of dollars in new facilities. The university's building a $100 million biomed facility right now. Some of the most expensive high schools in America have been built here, with the new Cass Tech and a School of the Arts. So a lot of big projects, but then there's a lot of small deals that have been happening along this whole corridor as well. And we like to see both the big and the small, and all types of activity occurring is what makes the neighborhood interesting. Our organization does a lot of things a business improvement district typically would do, although they're not taxed. We have over 50% of our land and property is in the hands of nonprofits, so taxing doesn't do us a lot of good, but we do have robust funding for our operating from about 4 major foundations: the Ford Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, the Community Foundation, the Hudson Weber Foundation, the Knight Foundation, a few other foundations, and it's matched by Henry Ford and Wayne State University. So we have about a $3 million annual base budget. We have about 18 LLCs now, of which we have development projects, or we're partners in development projects throughout the neighborhood, and we have a for-profit and a nonprofit subsidiary as well. So a lot of different structures. One of the things we're doing is trying to just create more green space throughout the neighborhood. So we've been spending about $15 million so far on just upgrading streetscape areas with new plantings and LED pedestrian lights and benches and drinking fountains and bike racks. And one of the things about Detroit is, as most of you I'm sure familiar, if you're familiar with Detroit, is that there's been a huge lack of any kind of normal kinds of investment that's been happening on the public side for really the whole 27 years I've been there. Like, if you want a parking deck, well, you better fund it. If you want a streetscape, you better find the money. And then you got to sign a maintenance agreement in perpetuity for anything that you improve. So it's a challenging, kind of a non-typical situation in terms of how you do infrastructure in the city. We have been able to leverage through the city some federal funds, some transportation funds to do some of these projects, but a lot of it is paid by private and philanthropic funding as well, whether it's the M1 rail line or whether it is a lot of other types of improvements. There is a kind of a different model operating, especially now that the city is in bankruptcy. We also have been doing some of these green alleys. It's just a whole new way that we're trying to approach all of our collapsing alleys, which I think most of you know that when you do a development, sometimes in the city, if you're up next to an alley, it's probably collapsing. So then you have to figure out what you're going to do with these alleys. So this is a pilot one we did with the Green Garage, which is a really incredible green business incubator in our neighborhood, where we came together. Now we're doing 4 more of these in the neighborhood because we feel like this is just a better direction to take in terms of rebuilding infrastructure. We also have been doing a lot of large community gardens, and these are really amenities for a residential population that's moving in. So we have about 250 gardeners and 2 big community gardens. And if you live there, you can pay next to nothing and have a beautiful place to grow all of your vegetables. And so we've been doing a lot of that. And then we've been offering lots of matching grants. I think we've matched over $3 million in matching grants now for folks to just put new facades on buildings or improve exterior, or for small build-out kinds of funding for small businesses who are moving in. So it's been critical to be able to offer these matching funds. Capital is tight, especially if you're a new startup in the neighborhood. This is a photo of a building that basically was a concrete front, no windows. And so we worked with the artist who recently acquired it for an art studio space and wasn't going to make use of the windows, to put on a couple of new storefronts for a couple of small businesses. So we have a small tapas restaurant, a small new boutique that's open next door to it, and that's just an example of how we're trying to clean up the facades. This is another building on 2nd Avenue that's been vacant for decades, and it's just been sitting there and was recently purchased to be a beautiful new restaurant. This will be Selden Standard, the chef from Roast, Andy Halliday. This is going to be his new restaurant that will open later this year. It'll be a great place, focusing on a lot of seasonal foods, and there'll be outdoor space, and it'll really start to change up an area that's very transitional. So we are having more and more people who are actually looking for these transitional, edgier areas now to do development. We have plenty of those. And the small business development has become more and more and more a big part of what our organization takes time doing. And last year we had 24 new storefront type businesses that opened in the neighborhood. This year we think we'll probably have about 30. That's what we're shooting for. We have to completely repopulate this neighborhood with everything from basic services to restaurants and bars. I mean, we have a core base, but we need way more to be a district that's competitive with other suburban, older downtown type districts. But anyway, it's finally coming along. Most of you are aware that we have a new Whole Foods that opened last year, who have done absolutely gangbuster business despite all of these cynics. This is one of their highest grossing per square foot stores in the United States. They have gone from 80 employees, within 6 months there are 150 employees here. So this has been a really good thing for the neighborhood. Shinola is another great story. They thought they'd do a modest amount of revenue out of the store. They've done about 5 times the projected revenue out of the store. They have a really strong brand. They're going to be doing a lot more in the neighborhood. There's a lot of other small shops that have been opening up in various new construction projects, but as well in a lot of the historic buildings that are being renovated throughout the neighborhood. So we're still sort of in the boutique phase, a lot of boutique lifestyle stuff, a lot of restaurant bar, a lot of yoga, a lot of coffee, you know. So we're finally getting in an eyeglass store, you know, we got in a big dental facility, you know. We're finally starting to get in the normal stuff, which I think, you know, ultimately we need to get some of the normal into the neighborhood as well. We partnered on this coffee house called Great Lakes Coffee. We wanted to have a partner for the space next to our office, and so we built out half the space, they built out half, and we share the lease and we share the space, and that's worked out to be a great partnership. We also run these large residential incentive programs called the Live Midtown and the Live Downtown residential incentive programs. We had $10 million, but now we have way more because Quicken Loans is really willing to write a check for any of their employees that want to live in the downtown or midtown neighborhoods. So we're offering $20,000 in down payment assistance for anyone who buys in Midtown, Downtown, Corktown, Woodbridge. We've expanded the Midtown boundary now out to Boston Edison for sale properties just recently. And so we've been busy. We've had about 1,500 people so far in this program, in the downtown and the midtown ones. We run both of those. You can see how the age is skewing young, especially downtown with a lot of the Quicken folks. These are a shot of where people are moving in from the area. So these are the different suburban communities. So, you know, no real pattern. It's just people coming in from a lot of different areas within the metro. This is another building that was a restaurant years ago. that went on the market, and we really felt this was a property that we needed to get control of. So we bought it a number of years ago. We wanted to make sure it remained a restaurant space. It's one of the few spaces that's in a good location that has its own parking lot. And so we thought, well, we better buy it. So we were going to redevelop it, and then we were approached by Hopcat, a large brand out of Grand Rapids, to do the biggest brew pub in Michigan. They'll have 150 taps, and an indie rock club on the second floor. So they're going to be opening in August in the neighborhood. So this is a case where we don't regularly sell our own property, but this was like a good deal for everybody, and we thought this would be a higher and better use than what we would do, and so we sold that. This is another project that we're doing with Lawrence Tech, and they're going to have a design studio and a classroom and other types of space on the second floor and the first floor. Liz is here from Quinn Evans. They're going to be in the third floor. We're going to move probably our office to part of the third floor. West Detroit's coming down with some offices on the third floor. So we're going to have a whole other little group facility down here where we're all going to hopefully do a lot of work together. This is the Forest Arms. We're a partner in this. This is a building that burned a number of years ago, a very important building in the middle of the neighborhood. Been 100% occupied for 100 years. And so we bought the building with a co-partner about 3 years ago. And then we were stuck in that whole limbo land of the governor and the tax credits because we were counting on $5 million worth of tax credits. We got all of our credits at the end of that year, which allowed us to move forward then. So now all the financing has been in place and this thing's finally under construction. This is another project that we decided to undertake. We bought this for about $1.5 million a couple years ago. Really not having a clue how we finance this project, but we knew we had to control this property, so we bought it. And now we're going to be closing on $28 million worth of financing. We're doing that with McCormick Barron out of St. Louis. This is going to be a mixed income project, mostly market rate. We'll have some affordable units. We'll do some retail use on the ground floor. And so we're really excited about this. It's sort of a looming, really problematic building that affects the whole landscape in the neighborhood. Then we bought this church that we also got $1 million grant from a large arts organization to turn this into an art center. So we're partnering with wine company. We're going to do an urban winery and arts center combo here. And this is right over on Forest by George Nandi's gallery. So we hope to start getting under construction by the end of the year on this work. It's another property we purchased a couple of years ago that we are going to get under construction hopefully in the fall for 4 extended stay units here. This is part of a whole block-long hotel we own of a whole block of historic mansions right next to the art museum. And then this is the project that Wayne State University is doing up in Tech Town. And another project we're doing is this public space, which will be in what's currently the Tech Town parking lot. So this is the first phase of a new public space we're putting in there in the fall. So this is an attempt to get people out of their siloed buildings up in Tech Town. It's a lot of high-quality development that's happened up there, but nobody goes outside. They all go in, they all go to their cars, and they leave. So they don't have really a public space. They have a lot of surface parking lots. And so we're going to take one of the surface lots, create this public space. Right across will be 460 new employees at Wayne State's new biomed facility. So we think once this thing is, once that building is done, it'll generate plenty of activity for the space. This is another project that Wayne State University recently announced. They're not the developer. Broder and Sachse are developing this. That's going to be on a corner piece of property that they own on Cass Avenue. It'll be about 230 units of market rate housing along with a 120-bed kind of standard hotel. And so they're in the process of lining up all their financing. This is a new Wayne State physical or physicians group facility. This is a new accelerator that Tech Town, the incubator Tech Town has put in, a big co-working space and accelerator that's now open to the public. We're also a partner on this project. This is a former Hebrew school that's now being renovated. This just closed like last week. Now being renovated for 27 new loft units. Located very nicely just a block away from the College for Creative Studies campus, so this should fill quickly. Some other one we're trying to get over the finish line, we're also a partner in. This would be 58 units of townhome development up in that same neighborhood. This would be mostly market rate. This is another one we partnered with, actually Liz, who's here, and the Sherbrooke, which turned out, I guess, to be somewhat successful. Anyway, Liz says yes. So the two of us came together on this one, our organization and her family, and we put this together. Again, this was a building that was going to be torn down by the university. and this would have been a really bad idea. And so they said, well, okay, if you find a buyer and you can put something together, we won't tear it down. And so we did it together, and it's a beautiful building. This is one on Woodward. This is close now, dangerously close, as we say, to being a done deal. They're going to have about 60,000 square feet of office space and some ground floor retail. This is the site, a site just south of Mack Avenue. It's owned by the city. It's being purchased by a local developer. And this is a couple of really cute buildings. One's on Cass and one's on Davenport. These are behind the Symphony Hall. They've been, again, vacant forever. This was a real dirge, a local nonprofit affordable housing developers doing this project. They do really great work. They manage great properties. So they finally closed on this a few days ago. And so this is 47 new renovated units that are coming online here. This is a whole block redevelopment. Our office is actually in this block, undertaken by a phenomenal local development team. Eric Means is here, I see him, he was part of this team. Liz was involved and many others. But the true hero behind all this is a guy by the name of George Stewart, who put this whole deal together that's transformed the worst block in the neighborhood. And trust me, that's saying something. Really bad block, and now it's just a fantastic amenity for the whole neighborhood. So it incorporates 61 units of market rate housing and a new building on the corner, completely renovated, fantastic historic theater, which is now the Woodward Garden, which was formerly the Sassy Cat. Then there is a new restaurant. There is a new office building. Then there's the coffee house, and Kresge Foundation has opened a Detroit office on this block. There's about 11,000 square feet of new retail on the corner. We are working with the owners. Most of this space is leased or very close to being leased. And we've managed to find a lot of credit tenants. That's the important thing. So for some of these buildings, especially the ones on Woodward, that are expensive to do, we are looking for credit tenants, regional, national. We'll take locals if they have credit. On Cass and Second and Third, we love our local startups, and we'll take a lot of risk with them over there. But we do want to make sure that our developers that have a lot of debt are positioned to hopefully be successful, pay their debt, move on to other projects in the neighborhood. This is kind of an interesting perspective on the development curve in the last 10 years in the neighborhood. So this is just going to tell you, in 2003, we had about 6 projects. Now, this doesn't include every little, project going on, but 6 kind of significant projects. That was the era that you were kind of seeing the townhome, the condos, the expansion of all the cultural museums. Everybody was flying high, as we remember, thinking everything was just going to be grand. And so a lot of money was flowing in. A lot of really high quality, really nice stuff was really working for the neighborhood. You got the Cass Tech, you've got big medical investments going in. That was before Obamacare. And then you've got the places like the Park Shelton, a lot of these beautiful historic properties converted from rental to condo, and beautiful projects and selling. And then you got into, again, more condo and historic, new construction, renovation. And then you started getting closer to 2008, where things started falling apart. This is another project that, from a market perspective, was very successful. A lot of creative companies and housing. There was a new park that we now own, New Center Park, that was developed up in New Center. 2008, again, converting old hotels for office space, for medical primarily. New art galleries were starting to come into the area. Then, a lot of drug apartment buildings were being cleared out by developers, and they repositioned them all now for student and young professional housing. A lot of that was going on. Slows to Go opened in the neighborhood, so a lot of the small businesses started following, coming in on the smaller scale. The Newberry project, which is in the upper, was a redo of another building that had been vacant forever, that's now housing primarily for medical tenants and medical residents and doctors. Those kinds of projects. Again, outdoor patio spaces started coming in. The coffee house. This is a shot of Shinola's 80,000 square foot factory they have in the Argonaut building, which is part of the College for Creative Studies. $158 million new building that was done just a number of years ago, that incorporates an expanded college footprint, and dorm rooms, and charter schools, and art galleries, and creative incubators, and this big factory for Shinola that's up there. Then we started getting in other kinds of the Whole Foods, the Auburn project. Now we're moving on to some new construction, the Forest Arms. Now there's about 28 projects that are in the pipeline for the neighborhood. So a big mix of small scale, large scale, lots of housing coming in the neighborhood. This gives you an idea of some of the residential pipeline that's underway, that's recently done. I know you don't have time to read all this, but there's a good amount of it now happening and more all the time. The biggest struggle we're going to face now in the neighborhood is since there's so many people interested in developing, the numbers still really don't work. So pretty much for anything. So, I mean, the small projects with the CRP from the state, which is their state commercial revitalization program, we can make some of those work. The big projects still usually have some pretty big soft debt that's required. And, you know, we've been all very creative and trying to get a lot of these over the finish line, which have been done. But now with so many people in downtown and midtown looking to do development, the state just simply has not made enough money available in that program to be a good replacement for the old state credits. So there was a lot of conversations everyone is having about where are we going to get this extra soft debt money that we need to make all this development continue at the kind of rate we need to see it continue at. We did set up a new fund with the Kresge Foundation and a finance partner of ours, Capital Impact, where we are giving loans for senior debt now for projects in the neighborhood that are 30-year AMs, 15-year terms, 5% interest, and 120% loan to value. So that's certainly helping a lot of the $5–6 million kind of projects make sense. But we have lots of larger projects that still don't make sense unless they can get access to much bigger amounts of that kind of senior debt. Plus, they still need the state CRPs. So we are still in a position, I think right now, our rent rates are anywhere from typically about $1.50 to about $1.70. It's better than the old days when they were about $1.20 and they stayed there.
Per square foot.
That's per square foot.
Per month.
Yeah, that's just the price per square foot. The reality is we only need to get up to $2 a square foot. And yeah, and that could take us another, 5 years to get there. So in the meantime, we still need to bring in a lot of different kinds of financing to really make this work for people. So everyone's kind of working on all kinds of creative funding tools to be able to get that done so that we're not slowing down the market momentum that we finally have, that really we haven't had for about the last 50 years. So it would be a shame now if we can't really maximize the opportunities that are really there and available in the city today, at least in the corridor. I think you're going to see some similar other activity really ramping up in probably the riverfront in the not too distant future. I think you'll see more mixed-use development coming online in Eastern Market and some of the other stronger areas like that as well. So I think I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about where Detroit's going, at least that whole 7.2-mile urban core that we have there. The rest of the city is for somebody else to talk about. But anyway, but that's what we're doing in Midtown. So I don't know how much time I took.
We've got more time. Do you want to comment on the M1?
Okay, so I'm on the M1 rail board, and I just left the board meeting before I came here. So it's still on. As you'll see, there's a bunch of kind of crazy, messy plates all over the roadway now.
You need to tell
Oh, I need to tell you what it is? Okay. How many people are from, not around
a
here?
lot of people from out of state.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought this was mostly local folks. So the M1 Rail is sort of a unique partnership that is being done between a private, nonprofit M1 Rail with some money from the feds, not a lot, mostly privately funded. That'll be a 3.5-mile streetcar-style rail line. This has been in the planning for a very long time, and it's taken a lot of different political waylaid, First, there was going to be, everybody was trying to get it to 8 Mile, and then there was about 5 different kinds of plans, and then, everybody's trying to get the RTA funded, the Regional Transit Authority. Got caught up in a lot of stuff. Now it's back to its regular, narrow focus. Let's just get this first 3.5 miles built, and hopefully it'll come in on somewhere near the budget. Now, MDOT, at the same time, is reconstructing the entire road, like everything. And that's a very expensive proposition. At the same time, they're rebuilding 2 of the bridges on Woodward, the one down at 375 and the one at 94. Those are like 25 mil each. So there's all kinds of moving infrastructure parts going on. So So right now, they're trying to, the rail side has a guaranteed maximum price, so they kind of know where they're at. The MDOT side doesn't yet know exactly where all that, their stuff's at. So now there's still a lot of work, I think, going on in terms of investigating what the true price of that, all of that complete underground reconstruction is going to be. But anyway, everybody's still marching towards trying to get this closed and fully under construction this spring or summer. We're hoping that it hits our area maybe late fall this year. So that's what that project is. Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, come on, somebody's got to have a question.
How'd you finance the parking deck behind your office?
Okay, it's not my deck, but I'll tell you how it was financed.
Change here.
Okay, because it's very, very difficult to finance decks. Actually, I'm trying to get 5 decks built. We only have 1 funded. And both of them are funded through the same thing, a Section 108 loan. And that's big but-for kind of loan money that you get through the city. That's really federal block grant funding. And it's just very long-term and low interest, and that's how that deck was primarily funded.
On some of the other public-private partnership projects, are you working within a certain set of parameters of what percentage from public funding that you're seeing, like 15% or 20% or 10%, or is it different for every project?
It's really custom. I mean, the financing for every single deal, because every deal has a different mix of stuff, different mix of affordability levels, different mix of whether there's commercial, so, quite a few are new market projects. So every one of them, unfortunately, that's one of the problems. One of the reasons we were trying to do this new fund, at least for the projects that are like $6 million and below, was to sort of create one where you wouldn't have to go to 10 different places and layer all the money, because that's what costs money and time. So the Ford Foundation came in with that fund with a $3 million PRI, which is a program-related 1% loan for all the pre-development. So you could actually get your pre-development, get your senior debt, and your construction loan all in one underwriting package. So we are trying that out. We just launched the program. We have 2 projects, I think, now that we've approved, and we're rapidly working through a bunch of new ones. But that was sort of the goal with that, is let's see, at least for the $6 million and below, how much brain damage we can sort of reduce, and how much time can be accelerated for a core set of projects that range anywhere from maybe 5 units to 50 units, which is a lot of what's down there. The big building we're doing is about 129. That's by far the largest, 150,000 square feet. That's by far the largest vacant building in the neighborhood. So most of them are just, the kind of scale, could be 10, could be 75, could be 50, a lot of those 30 and 40 kind of units. We don't have a whole lot of buildings, historic buildings anyway, that haven't already been purchased and they're under some kind of redevelopment. So very few of those left. There are some, and certainly some come on the market a couple a year, but there's not like a tremendous amount of these anymore sitting around.
With all the revitalization in Midtown, what type of initiatives are you taking to make sure that some of the existing residents who may not be able to keep up with the $2 square foot aren't being displaced with the change?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, our residential incentive program is certainly one way. The whole idea of that was to incentivize people and help them pay. As values increase, the rent in the neighborhood has increased 14% over the last 3 years, which certainly is not a huge, amount. But for about 20 years, we never went up at all, so we're happy with a 14% increase. There is certainly, as more economics are working in the neighborhood, you're going to see a new wave of development, which is really going to be substandard buildings, which there are many of them because we're in a campus area, where people are going to decide to sell them, or developers are going to step up and they're going to renovate those properties. Some will choose to do full renovations. Others are just going to choose to take it up a notch and then take the rent up 2 notches, and that's how they're going to try and make some money. That's more the scenario where you have to start worrying about where people are going to go. We haven't really had almost any of that in our neighborhood in the whole 27 years I've been there, because everything's been vacant. So, I mean, you don't need to worry about displacement when everything's vacant for the most part. We're finally at the point where that's becoming an issue, more of an issue. So We try to help people get into other affordable units in the neighborhood. We have lots of affordable housing. Of our housing stock today, 30% is rent restricted in Midtown. We have lots of rent restricted. 70% is market, and we like the 70-30 overall for the neighborhood. So we're also involved in market rate projects, but we're also involved in mixed income projects. So right now in the pipeline, 65% of everything in the pipeline is market. 35% of everything in the pipeline is rent restricted. So again, as long as we're kind of in that 70-30, it might go a little bit one direction or another depending on who's doing what, but that is the long-term goal, to keep that kind of, we have big workforce in the neighborhood, so we want to keep workforce housing, which is basically what a lot of the rent restricted housing is. We have lots of people that work at these big medical facilities that don't make huge wages by far. And we need to have them living here, and that's part of the reason why this LIVE program is benefiting many of those folks. It also benefits, people who are professionals and doctors and everyone else, but we have a lot of people who have been at the lower thresholds that have benefited from that incentive program.
There's a question over here.
Yes, as you plan, design, and build parking decks, do you also plan to reduce parking loads per use and allow individual developments to not build parking and use public facilities?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and this is a really good quandary that we currently have. Oh yeah, the question is, how do you bring in parking but not too much? And how do you blend it in a way that doesn't jeopardize your walkability and all your other pedestrian-oriented and transit-oriented development? So this, I think, is another one of those kind of things that ratchets up over time and eventually market corrects itself. But in the meantime, this is the problem. So we're rezoning the whole neighborhood to SD 1 and 2. Okay, so I'll give a special district 1 and 2 zoning. With that, we've got an agreement with everybody to sort of support 0.75 instead of the current 1.25, okay, for housing units. So that's a step in the right direction. You get to your underwriters, though, who are underwriting all these deals, and they will not accept less than 1 car per unit under any circumstance. So we don't really have the underwriters yet, even where the zoning is going. Now, as they see the rail come in, like they really see it come in, and as they see other successful projects that are coming online that don't have these massive parking thresholds, the underwriters will start loosening up on some of that, because, and they're taking their cues from the appraisers, and they'll start to loosen up as they see that there's a kind of a different priority from the renters and the buyers for that. So it's going to be one of these sort of, our solution to it right now is to just try to get some shared parking decks built that'll have ground floor retail on some of the vacant lots where it makes sense, where we can build street walls between some of the commercial space. But parking decks don't make any sense financially in an area that still doesn't have economics that work. So those will have to be pretty heavily subsidized decks in order to really get them done. But that's the long-term solution. Pick a couple of these, which we've already identified, certain parcels that are located where we need them, where we can build efficient decks with commercial on the ground floor. And if we can get that shared system in there, then we don't really want to talk about parking anymore. We want that to not, right now we're probably at the Board of Zoning every 2 weeks for probably the last 15 years with one project or another. It's really a lot of wasted time.
Parking is the key to everything, and one of the things that happened to Birmingham in the 70s and 80s is that they built 5 parking structures and removed the on-site parking requirement. It's one of the reasons why Birmingham grew so quickly compared to surrounding communities.
And one of the other reasons why we want to do these, we're similar. We're talking about 5 decks too. So 1 funded, the other 4 yet to be funded. This one that was just built that is open to the public that's behind our office. But when the rail project comes in, the majority of the parking on Woodward's all going permanently. So we also have a responsibility, the businesses, to bring in some of this shared parking. So,
Thank you very much, Sue.
Welcome.